Oh, hello everybody. Got me by surprise there. I think we're live. We are live. Hopefully you can hear me okay and you can see me okay. Welcome to the Foxton Friday Live for July the 18th, 2025. So today, the theme is the kind of the balance, the thin line that we sometimes can walk if we want to as painters between the abstract design, the composition, and making something look real. I kind of see this as a continuum, and where you end up on this continuum is largely, to my mind, it's a personal choice. You know, some people like to work to a really high finish, a really high level of realism. Some people like to work very abstract. I find myself, the spot that I am on that line between abstraction and composition and making something look real changes around quite a bit. So today, just lately, I've probably, to be fair, I've been pushing more towards abstraction. So today I'm definitely going to be doing that. But I still want things to look real, you know. So, don't have a plan for how I'm going to start this painting yet, but I do have a couple of ideas about it. I really like these flowers. Brazilian Jasmine, or rock trumpet, it's called. I forget the correct Latin name for them. Found them in the garden centre yesterday. Really, really pretty flowers. And I love those shapes, those hard edge shapes, and they kind of lend themselves to a more abstract kind of a treatment, if you like. So that's why I'm going that way today. And also, as soon as I saw them with the white and the yellow, I imagined a blue with them, a greenish blue with them. So I've got a roughly greenish blue background, very close to grey. I've got a little blue pot. And the only plan I really have so far is that I'm going to make the green of the background and the green of the pot the same. So it's going to kind of simplify the design, okay? Is that going to work? Is it going to be good? Is it going to look a bit rubbish? Don't know, we'll have to wait and see. Here is the usual panel. This is a 10-inch by 8-inch ampersand gesso board panel. I like the gesso board ones best because I like the surface. So I'll tell you what I've got. Before we do anything else, I'll tell you what I've got out on the palette as well. Let's switch to the palette quickly. And I'll show you what paints I've got out today. I've got lead white. These are both the same. I just tend to put two out because I know about 10 minutes into when I start painting, about 10 minutes in, I'm going to get loads of different colours of paint mixed up in one of them. So I've got a backup ready already. Cad yellow, just for the little yellow parts of the flowers. Now this is cobalt blue. You could use ultramarine just the same. It wouldn't matter because the chroma is going to be fairly low. But I know we're going towards a green blue. What green blue, you know, how green, I don't really mind, as long as I get the chroma and the value right. Transparent red oxide here, and this is green gold. They are a pair, and will allow me to get a wide range of high chroma, beautiful shadow colours, from red orange all the way to around to almost yellow green. So by mixing between those, the reason I put them side by side on the palette is that it means that I can mix between them easily. That should become obvious whilst I'm painting. The chroma droppers, I call them. This is raw umber, and this is ivory black. And then I've got a little bit of phthalo green here. This is Winsor & Newton, Windsor green. Basically to send this blue a little more towards a green blue, and it will also be helpful for the leaves as well, I think. Let's just check the exposure of this camera and bring that up a little bit, I think, on the palette. That's a bit better. So that's what we've got. We don't have a plan. We do have two spatulas. These come from Catalyst by Princeton. Catalyst. I think I called them Create in the description, but they're actually called Catalyst 01, 02. I've got another one as well. Where's the other one? This one is definitely more of a cake icing tool. Oh, what's that? 06. There's not a lot of difference between them, but I like these two quite a lot. Good for getting really, really hard edges. And, oh, forgot to put the palette back on. These are good for getting really hard edges and for putting paint on really, really thickly, which I do intend to do at some point today. I've got, let's open the phone up and I should hopefully be able to show you. Talking about the Chroma Magic in the description, I've got the reference photo up here on the incredible Chroma Magic app, which can tell me exactly what color things are. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to paint them that color, but it does tell me what value they are in the photo, and that is a really useful starting place. And then the value scale. This comes from a very helpful and wonderful man called Paul Kentore. You can get this for $10 on eBay. Link is in the description for that. And this allows you see, this scale here is the Munsell value scale. This is the Munsell value scale. So this gives you, but this is real world and this is digital. So this gives you a direct translation of the values if you want to do it that way from what you see here. So the shadow there is a value 3. And there's my value 3. All right. Let's get some tools moving around and get some things moving. How is everybody? Lovely to see you. Retired Painter says, I just bought Chroma Magic right after last week's show. It is such a good tool. The caveat is always with a tool like that, especially because Chroma Magic is so good at what it does. If you wanted to get really, really close to doing, basically almost a copy of a photo, you could use the tool for that. I would argue that the best use of that tool is to use it to help to develop, train your ability to judge values and chromas and colors. In here I've got a little bit of linseed oil, this one. And I've got a little bit of solvent in it as well. I tend to use terps, but you could use Gamsol or something. It's probably, I put a little bit more solvent in it today just to see how it goes. This is probably like 4 parts oil to 1 part solvent. And I'm going to wipe the whole of the panel with it. Just to let everything flow nicely. And then I'm going to wipe that back. So I end up with a very kind of a thin layer. I don't want too much on there. Everybody in the UK saying how hot it is. It's actually cooled down a little bit where we are now, just outside the Cotswolds. Not as hot as it was. It is still very warm though. Hello Stephanie, hello Jan. Hi Kathy, good to see you. Hi Ginya. Lots of value play here. Yes indeed, you are right Ginya. A lot of stuff with values, but I think I'm going to try and simplify that down an awful lot, you know. Hello Betty, good to see you. Thomas is in Newfoundland, you're travelling. Nice. Hello David. David says it's too hot to paint. Very good excuse. Hello Lisa. Is that right? Sandell family, is that right? Is it Lisa? I'm really crossing my fingers I got your name right this time. I try to remember everybody's names because of course on YouTube people come up with whatever their YouTube handle is and that doesn't always make sense to me. All friends here today. Very nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. Sandra says, is there a reason you put the raw umber next to the GG? Phthalo green? Actually, it's my black is next to it. Not really. I mean, I put it off to the side, the phthalo green, just to remind myself how dangerous it is and how easy it is to get covered in it. You know, to get your dinner covered in it, your pets, your loved ones. Your car, your house, carpet. It just gets everywhere. What are we going to do? How are we going to approach this today? Yeah, I mean, mostly I arrange things by value from dark to light. And I tend to put that one off on the side just to remind me that to treat it with respect and care. Is my camera little bit wonky today. Never mind, we're going to have a slightly wonky panel, I guess. I'm just trying to decide where to start. I think I'm in two minds about whether to do a wipeout today or whether to just go in and start painting or do something like kind of a wipeout. I generally like to create the atmosphere, if you like, first. Oh, I've got a colour missing, which I want to put on there. I think I forgot to put this one on the materials list. This is dioxazine purple. Also a dangerous colour. Let's have it off to the side, look. Why is that there? I'll show you in a second. I'm thinking. Come to my YouTube channel and watch me think. It's not a very strong recommendation, is it really? It's like literally the opposite of what you're supposed to do on YouTube videos. I think, you know what, I think this area like around here, I'm going to do this very dark and then coming out to like a lightish blue here. This is all that. Now, the reason that I've got the dioxazine purple out is that this is kind of slightly purplish bluish. So I'm just thinking about the overall color scheme. It's white and blue with a little accent of yellow. Now, really, this would be kind of an orange here, like a low chroma orange, but I think I'm going to try something. I'm just going to, let's say, let's go without any drawing out today so that we can just kind of play with the shapes. This is probably going to be one of those sessions where I just kind of figure it out as I go, you know. I know that this isn't actually black. I know it's not really black. So I'm not really going to draw these. This is just ivory black. I'm not really going to draw these flowers out. I'm more just going to kind of put in some background colour and probably then we'll have a bit of raw umber in there as well, I think. I'm just kind of feeling my way in. The reason I'm starting it like this is because this is the kind of effect that I want to get. You know, I want this kind of hard edge, these shapes here, really strong kind of design. This is, I'm picking up some transparent red oxide and I'm mixing some green gold with it. Now this is going to give me, let's have a little bit of raw umber in there as well. This is going to give me a colour that would work quite well for like the shadow area, which comes down to just about halfway down, about here, say. We're going to have a cast shadow. Cast by the pot. So I'm deliberately kind of just placing shapes at the moment. See, I want it to go kind of, I know I want the value here to go up to about a 4 or a 5. So I'm gonna be fairly close to the values of the reference photo, except here where I've gone black, which I may or may not keep. We'll see what happens. So I'm gonna mix a color now for the background. Mostly black, so I'm going to use, what's that? Purple. Yeah, let's not be picking the purple up. Need some more black already. There's something about, I find just lately, I'm reaching for, I very rarely used to paint with pure black, but I'm reaching for it a lot more these days. There's something I like about the strength of it. I'm going to mix about a value 5 just with black and white. 4, 5, something like that. Let's see what we've got. So this is one of those kind of approaches, like sometimes, you know, this is just a bit lower than a value 5. Sometimes when I'm painting, and when I'm teaching, I don't really approach things this way. I tend to be a little bit freer on the Friday night. Because it keeps things interesting for everybody, keeps it interesting for me, and it also allows me to show you some different stuff about, you know, maybe how I work when I'm not actually teaching a specific thing on a course, you know. I'm going to get some blue, bring that to the same value with white. Not too much, because I want it. The reason I've started with black and white is because I don't want the chroma to get out of control. And I want that to go slightly greenish, so I'm going to bring in a little bit of the phthalo green. Now the little pot is more of a purple blue, but I'm going to paint it more of a green blue, because I'm thinking more about simplifying the design. But what I probably will do is bring a little bit more chroma into the blue in the pot. But I want them to be really closely related. I don't know if it's going to work out yet or not. It's just an idea really at the moment. Actually, I'm going to bring a bit more chroma into the background. So the color that I'm mixing here is to go on the top left of the painting in the background. I'm kind of deciding as I'm mixing what I want to go there. I'm not putting the same color as the photo. It's not a million miles away. The value is close, but I'm going to play with it a little bit. That looks like it's got a bit darker. Let's put that in anyway and see what we've got. It's kind of... So I deliberately cropped this so the flowers actually disappear off the edge, because that then makes it kind of just that little bit more sort of abstract, you know. It emphasizes the kind of abstract quality a little bit more. Let's just for fun, we'll put a little bit stronger color in just when we go into the shadow here. So I'm going in immediately, like making a bunch of really hard edges, like deliberately, just because that's the way I want the painting to feel, you know. So I'm going a little bit more on feel. This is raw umber and white, and let a little bit of this blue come into it as well. I'm going to bring that in, and I like these spatulas for laying paint down with, because you tend to be a little bit less precious about it. You're kind of, you can cover a fairly large area fairly quickly, and also it kind of makes you make some strong statements, and it makes interesting marks as well. I think I want the cloth in now. The lightest part of the cloth it's quite light. It's up to about a value 8-ish. I'm actually going to put some, I'm aware, for everybody who's always got their materials list together, I put the materials list out, obviously, before the live session. By the way, if you want to get notifications for these sessions with the materials list before they go live, there's a link in the description for my email list, which you can join. Why titanium white. Let's have a bit more than that. Because it's a very cool bluish white. And I want everything around here to be like a cool bluish white, and then I want a noticeably warmer, more orange, if you like, white. For the flower petals. Get that contrast in there. So the lightest part, just looking at the values, let's say like a 7, value 7 to an 8. So I'm bringing a little bit of black in it that I'd already mixed. A little bit too light still. I'm not putting anything apart from black in this at the moment because I want it to be very cool. About 7. I mean, this is all cloth. And I like to kind of get these big shapes in because let's put some dioxazine purple in that. Make it go a little bit purpley. And it actually, as we go towards the shadow, it's going to get darker. So I'm going to mix up a version with a bit of black and raw umber in it. It's a bit darker as we go towards the shadow here. You've kind of got to, if you're following along with me and you want to have a go at painting like this, you've kind of got to be prepared to let go a little bit. I mean, part of the reason that I approach paintings a lot like this way is because, I mean, for me personally, I got to a stage with my work where I felt that I was, I don't think trapped is the right word, but I was habitually painting with very accurate colour. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, there totally isn't. But I wanted to find a bit more expression, you know? And painting like this is kind of freeing at the start because all of this is really, you know, it's loose, but in terms of the values, it's pretty careful. You know, the values are really close to what I want eventually to end up with. But it kind of, it just opens up a lot of possibilities. I'm not too invested in any of this, you know, I can change any of it at any point. I think might have too much green in there. My shadow. Wants to be darker here, bring some more umber in. I'm not even sure if things are really in the right place at the moment, but we'll find out. It's starting to feel like shadow there. You can put quite a lot of chroma in the shadow of a white cloth and it works really nicely. Go a little bit lighter there. Jamie says this is looking sweet. It's looking kind of random at the moment, huh? Wonder what a general shadow colour would be for that flower on the left. Probably like value-wise, value 4-ish, because it's pretty, this area here. See, I really like this because this is the same value as this, like 4, 5 shadow area of that flower there, but it's going to be like warmer. If I go raw umber and lead white. You see, now you can see why I've got 2 lots of lead white out, because this already has some phthalo green in it and some green gold, which would be a nightmare if that got into whatever the colour that I mix next, you know, the colour I'm going to mix now. I'm thinking about what does the white look like in shadow. It usually will go slightly orange. Lowish chroma, but I want about the same value. So we'll have that kind of cool lights, warm shadows thing that you get in interior light. Is that about a 4 or 5? So this is kind of I'm thinking of a shadow color for the flowers. I'm going to use this palette knife for putting it on. This is a Holbein MX. Got from Jackson's art. I think it's a 1 shadow color for the flowers. So I expect this painting to well, let's say I hope that this painting is going to look like a complete mess until I actually start putting some things in that make sense, and then it's all going to suddenly come together, or it really won't. But it's going to be fun, getting there. The main thing I'm trying to do a lot of the time, let's say I rarely teach painting like this. Usually I'm teaching like very specific things about value and, careful drawing and chroma and all that kind of thing. But actually I think there is a lot of value in being able to work this freely, like as in your skill set, as long as you can create, convincing reality at the same time. So at the moment, obviously, I mean, you could say this is like complete abstraction, but it's not really, because, there is already, I think anyway, there's already a kind of a suggestion of the space. So I said I was going to do the pot and the background the same color. So I'm going to be hitting like a value 5, which this is. Oh, hello, the dog's coming. Hello, little girl. It'll be like about the half tone at a value 5. I'm anxious to get enough down to be able to see if it's going to work or not. In the light, we'll give it a little bit more chroma. We're going to be like a value 7 or an 8. Make it go a little bit greener. You can do that with anything. You could use, I've got cad yellow here, like what on my palette is going to allow this blue to go a little bit more blue-green. I could use the cad yellow, I could use the green gold, or I could use the phthalo green. Doesn't really make a lot of difference, any of them will work. Trying to figure out where the side of the vase is going to come. I've probably got this in entirely the wrong place. Actually, that's not light enough. What values? That's more like a 7. Yeah, it's like a 7 and I want an 8. Thick paint. Lots of texture. See, I want those to be kind of the same color. I'm just going to let some of that beautiful dioxazine purple bleed in here. And the shadow side will go, it'll probably be almost orange, like it's going to be, like value is going to be 2. It's definitely going to go a little bit more towards an orangey kind of colour. So I'm going to mix raw umber and cobalt down to about value 2. Put that in with a brush because it's going to be soft. Still just creating the space at the moment, really. So much of this is just about putting the right values down in the right place, you know, and then handling the edges. You can play with the color a lot if you want to. I still, generally speaking, I would say for me personally, I still stay pretty close to the actual colors that I see. And I tend to use, personally, I use the paint handling and texture a lot to kind of bring in a little bit more, something a bit more personal. I'm looking at this edge where this petal here joins this, you know, and where does that happen? It's like just about above halfway up the painting, so it actually happens about there. So let's bring that shadow all the way up to there. Have this strong, that's just, I'm just seeing that as a compositional, just a, you know, an abstract shape, I mean. Here. Gonna need to be thinking about more carefully. So there's some, you know, a few, the colours is wandering a little bit here and there from what's actually there in the photo. But in an interesting way, hopefully. It's a nice leaf there as well, but we won't put that in yet. Within these shapes, I want soft edges. Get a nice big soft flat. This is like for shadow areas of the petals. So now I've got this shadow colour here. If I mix up some more of that, I should be able to link all of the shadow areas of the petals if I make sure that they're all pretty close. That. Link it visually in the painting, and then if I manage to paint one bit of a shadow of a petal that is utterly convincing as a shadow of a petal, then your mind will make up the rest if the colour is close. It's how you can kind of get away with painting things like very, very loosely sometimes. If you have just one or two areas that are very carefully resolved. So the shapes, the abstract design is starting to appear a little bit. Anna says, would you talk a little bit about how much paint you're applying to the panel? I'm used to working on canvas. When I use panel, even tiny amounts seem like too much. Huge mess. Yeah, so huge mess is a pretty good description of how I'm starting the painting. So the paint is thick. You know, in places it's like standing up. Almost like here it's really thick. Here it's really, really thick. On the edge there, like, you know, it's almost like sculpted, that edge of the little pot. Here it's thinner because this is shadow, you know. So when I go into shadow, I'll tend to generally work a little bit thinner, which is why you get this kind of glow of the green gold, you know, with all that chroma showing. This is a little bit thinner here. in the lights, like this is thick. So I tend to do that a lot. Like I'll really push the thickness of the paint in the lights. But I'm deliberately making a mess. It's a controlled mess. I hope it's a controlled mess. So I'm trying to keep to the values. You know, I'm being careful with my values. Like I'm adjusting value here. Does this need to be a bit lighter? Yeah, I think it does. So I'm bringing a little bit more of this titanium white in here. But the paint is thick in the light. I want a lot of texture in the light. And then where we get into the shadow areas, I'll tend to soften it more. You know, softer edges, like there isn't really an edge to the little pot, little vase. I mean, I'm choosing these colours, you know, I've used them before and I know they work. You know, it's not completely random. And I really like this feeling of like having like quite a lot of chroma. In the shadow. So I like all of this. I like this messiness, and I like this texture all around here. It's just, I mean, that really is. It's a personal thing, and it's just kind of where I am. You know, with how I paint and what I like, more than anything else. So I want this hard edge. Let's put the value in that I want there. So it's hard edge. So I want a hard edge between the flower and the background there, except that it's not just white against the background because I need the shadow side of the flower, which is going to be... So I'm using raw umber and white, lead white. If you use just raw umber and titanium white, you'll get a much cooler color with lower chroma, and the hue will be more bluish, and it won't work quite as well. There's no doubt about that. But I'm going to put this, like, show you how you can use these tools to get a nice hard edge. So when I pick it up, like I've got quite a lot of, can you see that? I've got quite a lot of paint on there. Wipe that blue off first. Never mind, it'll all be interesting texture. Take that off the top. One of the things that I really like about these spatula things is that it's such a different way of painting. I love the marks it makes. It just makes such interesting marks. And it really keeps you from like obsessing over perfect drawing and tiny details, you know. This is totally the wrong shape, but it's It's a nice hard edge. So maybe I'll leave it that shape. Bit lighter here further around. This probably needs to come up in here. There's always like when I'm working like this, which is not all the time, but sometimes when I'm working in this way, there's always a kind of, I mean, this is the sort of the tension I'm talking about, where I'm always wondering, like, have I gone too far? Can I pull this back far enough? And maybe the answer is no. No, you can't. But usually the answer is yes, you can. Yes, you can pull it back. I'm thinking about this shape of this petal. Let's carve that out. So it comes down to, I would say, about down to there. That's the middle of the painting, so it's going to be a little bit over to the left. This is another little colour shaper tool that I like a lot. So if I've got a lot of paint on there like this, and then I push it off, scrape it off with this silicone thing, I can get some nice, interesting shapes, you know, quite hard edges on the outside of this petal. Obviously the petal is not blue though, and I've got quite a lot of blue in there, so I'm going to have to do something about that. I'm just trying to build the space, you know, at the moment. I'm trying to build the space, which is mostly about the value and the chroma. And I'm trying to keep it really open. Does that make sense? This is, to be fair, one of those streams where I'm just kind of painting my own painting rather than really teaching anything. And then going to be I'm going to put in that yellow spot just because it's going to give me a real reference for, I'm starting to get into where the petals go now. So let's make sure that that yellow spot is, here's how you can use the Chroma Magic app to really nail a color. Like, let's say, like just that yellow spot, what color is it actually? Like right in there. It's this color here. You know, it's intense. The value is a 6, you know, so you can, using these tools, just showing you just on this particular accent of the painting, I'll show you how you can use these tools together to really nail the value of a color and everything else, if that's, you know, if that's what you want. So I know it's a value 6, right? Because it says here 6. There's my value 6. How am I going to mix this color? Well, it's definitely an orange, so I'm going to start off with cad yellow, which is actually a value 8. I know I need to bring the value of that down. Shall I bring the... No, I won't bring the palette up full screen because the reference photo will cover the bit that I'm using. So I'm using transparent red oxide, and let's bring it down to the right value. You know, that's about the right value, and it's good, you know, it's pretty close, but it's a little bit too orange, right? So if I want it to go a little bit more towards a yellow, then I'll put a bit of the green gold in it, and it will swing the hue. We're going to need a little bit more cad yellow as well, because it's going to drop the value. So this is letting me get, yeah, that's it, that's really good. So you might be tempted to look at that, not really think about it much, that yellow part of the flower, and think, yeah, I'll just pop some cad yellow in there because it's a yellow, right? It's actually an orange of about a value 6. Let's put that note in using a, doesn't really matter for that, I don't think. I'm going to use a hog, but I want to get it in the right place in the painting. a little bit, it's almost exactly in the middle vertically, and it's a little bit above halfway horizontally, so probably it's going to be about here. Going to get lighter as it comes further out, more cad yellow. Actually, I can probably just wipe it back a little bit because the chroma is so high. You'll see the white underneath. Yeah. It's nice because it's a reference point, but it's also kind of giving me a bit too much of it on there. I'm getting a bit carried away with the amount of paint I'm throwing around today. So this is a little cotton bud. I think you call them Q-tips, right, in the US, with a little bit of solvent on it. Nice for lifting paint. Did I mix the value right? I forgot to check the value, which is always like, actually that looks too dark. It's a bit too dark. Never mind. I'm just spending a little bit of time trying to get that to feel right in the painting. Be the right size and in the right place, roughly the right shape. Hard edge is on the left, and then soft on the right as it blends out into the petals. This is way too light. So now everything is coming together. I can see a little bit more the relationships. So I tend to, when I teach with Chroma Magic because I think it's an incredibly good tool for people to use to make sure that they get things right, they get things more right. Because if you continually practice color and your color is out and your values are out, it can be very difficult to figure out what it is that you're doing wrong. So having something like a reference to say, yeah, that bit there, it's a value 3, and then you put down the value 3, and it's suddenly the thing comes alive. You know, having that experience is incredibly valuable, I think. But I'm tending to, I think that chroma's too high. I'm tending to put this one together like a lot more in terms of relationships, you know. And then did it go too light again? Mixing the paint on the panel. Yeah, so what I'm looking for is when I stand right back and I squint, I'm looking for a feeling of depth and space. Deliberately gone way darker than the reference photo here, so I can get this strong feeling of these petals against that. I feel like there's one color that I haven't put in yet, and it's the green of the leaves. This looks too not cool enough, not cold enough to me at the moment as well. Which is odd because I use titanium for it. Black, cobalt blue, dioxazine purple, titanium white. More titanium white. I love this tool. You throw a load of paint down and then you can push it around and put it in different places. So it's starting to appear. It's gone from being like almost totally abstract to beginning to appear. The space, the space is beginning to appear. I think what I might do with this is end up doing it maybe over two sessions. Maybe next Friday I'll do a second session on it and show you a process of kind of bringing something which is like very loose and abstract, and then bringing back. I don't know, we'll see how we go. See, I'm starting to feel this as a plane now. It's mostly the values and the chroma that do that. Let's soften this. The soft edge here will push this part back against this part here. So I want all of this to be soft, and then I want a nice hard edge. Got to be careful how hard you press with these spatula things, because if you press too hard, they kind of stick to the surface and it won't flow, and you want it to kind of flow. This is once again, like I often feel this way when I'm doing a stream like this, when I just start and I just paint. I feel that I'm being a little bit indulgent because I'm really enjoying the painting. This is the way I love to paint at the moment. It's like trying to create a feeling and a depth, feeling of light. But at the same time, didn't want all that purple in there. At the same time, keep it really kind of open and loose for where it can go. It's like a tension between something looking completely abstract and actually feeling like something that you could reach out and touch. That kind of tension is what I'm looking for. Tension maybe isn't the right word. Balance is maybe a better word. And the more I paint, the more I find myself kind of pushing further into that area where things almost break down, but not quite. This is going to be tricky because I've got so much shadow in there. I've got so much chroma on there. If I put the white or the shadow color of that petal there, it's gonna pick up all of that chroma. So all of this has to come out. That's actually petal, right? Give myself a tricky thing to deal with here. See, like as I'm wiping that back, that green gold is so strong, it's staining the panel. So all of the stuff that I teach in my courses, like the careful rendering of form and understanding of color mixing and light and shadow and simplifying, the modeling factors of form, all of that is at play here whilst I'm working. But it's almost not an unconscious level, I wouldn't say, but a lot of the stuff, it's got to a point where I don't need to focus on it entirely, so I've got more, I can give myself a little bit more leeway to play, which is a nice place to be at in painting. But it's taken me like a ridiculous amount of time to get to this point. 20 years maybe since I really started. I decided I was gonna learn to paint. But 20 years ago, when I started doing it, there wasn't really any internet. Not much. And there was very little out there. The situation is so much better now. There was very little out there back then that could help you learn to paint. So a lot of it was just trial and error. And that's why I started my blog, which you can still find at learningtosee.co.uk. Palette's getting out of control a little bit now. Can you see the space coming though, the environment, the kind of the feeling of and the depth? I'm much more concerned with that at this point than I am about whether it looks like a flower or not, because I know that bit can come later. What I spend most of my time adjusting is edges and chroma and value at this point. Let's try and make this petal. It's shadow, so it's semi-shadow, like value 8, 7, 8. I just want the general colour in. And it gets a little bit darker at this bottom edge, so what I'm going to try and do now is have a lighter part and a slightly darker part mixed on the palette. Pick it up so I've got lighter here and darker here, and let's see if I'm lucky if I can just kind of... didn't have enough of the dark colour on it. Didn't quite get there. I want light and a hard edge. So now I've really loaded this little tool with white, and I'm going to try and make a hard edge against the shadow. I guess I've started on the petals a little bit. This is where I'm going to zone out, I'm afraid, more than likely. I'm doing a really bad job. I keep saying this, I know, but I'm doing a really bad job today of keeping up with the comments because this painting is just fascinating me at the moment. It's like it's... I wouldn't necessarily recommend painting this way for everybody, but it's like it's on the edge of falling apart. But interesting things are happening in the textures and everything at the same time, so I'm going to keep going at it like this. Let's get some of that green in. The leaves, I'm thinking about the leaves. Let me catch up with the comments a little bit now, because we're getting to a point where it's the thing is starting to appear. How long have we been going? I usually find that I'm surprised when I do something like this, paint like this. I'm surprised like how long I've been painting for. Yeah, I'm surprised. I didn't know I'd been going for an hour. Is anyone still here watching? Oh yeah. Don't you find this maddening? Watching someone paint in a really ridiculous way. I would. It's like the least. I know I keep on saying this, but it's like my live sessions are everything that you're not supposed to do on a YouTube channel. Let's get that other yellow spot in. That would be really nice as a reference point too. Just to kind of, it's quite a lot darker, so I've just put a lot more green gold and transparent red oxide into this yellow. Right out here somewhere. almost where we get to that bit of background there. See, I tend to be like or try at least anyway, let's say, very careful where I place things like this. I want them to be right, I want them to be in the right place. But I'm already getting, I know it's messy, but I'm already getting that feeling of the light hitting this flower, you know, so this part of the panel is completely, there's nothing on it but oil. So with these spatulas, you can use them to apply paint, and you can also push paint off and affect the values with it a little bit. Bit more like drawing with charcoal, kind of like a wipeout way. It's all like on the edge of being wrong, but hopefully just about, for the moment, just about hanging together. This almost feels like there's more light hitting it because I haven't painted anything there yet, which is sort of interesting and makes me wonder what possibilities there might be there. I've no doubt I've got loads of questions about what I'm doing, and I'm just not keeping up with them at all, am I really? Is this in the right place? Ish. Black, hard edge, strong. So my shadow color is basically just lead white and raw umber. That's the shadow color for my petals. So I'm just trying to make sure that I hit the values right. I like this, that these are like more closely related. Oof. Time to get tired. Let me catch up with the comments. Gillian says, Paul, do you think you have more control using the spatulas? In some ways, it allows you to get a really hard edge, but for me anyway, part of the reason for using them is, as I was saying, it's like the interesting marks they make, and it's almost like you don't have quite so much control over that. And I kind of, that's part of what I like about them. It's a little bit kind of on the edge. You know what I mean? So I like it. They introduce a lot of randomness, but you can do hard edges with them. You can also do soft edges with them. They take a lot of. I think it's fair to say they take some confidence to use well. You've sort of got to commit and hope for the best. But, you know, it's just paint, and you can, you know, if you're not happy with what you're seeing on there, you can wipe it off and start again, you know. And what's the worst thing that can happen is that you wasted some paint, basically, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not such a big deal. When you look at what's happening in the world today, people being snatched off the streets in the US and deported or thrown into concentration camps, it's like, what? Talk about a mad world. All we're doing here is we're playing with paint. Nobody gets hurt. Soft edge on the edge of a cast shadow. So I've lost this edge here. I'm quite happy with it being lost, but I can probably bring in just a little bit of, just to show the back edge, a bit of the lighter cloth colour here, just to show that, and a little hint of a hard edge, just to show the left-hand side of the vase there, as long as I don't overdo it. And it's probably better to do that before I put the leaves in. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I have more control. I'd say I kind of like the fact that I have a little bit less control. It's almost like they become part of the painting in a way. Some of the marks that I've got at the moment I'm not especially happy with, and we'll probably work over them in another session. But some of them I like a lot. I like this hard light edge there. I'm just going to do it by scraping it. I keep saying I'm stopping and I'm going to do the leaves, and I keep getting distracted by other interesting things. Kate says it feels like a collusion between the artist and the audience. That's nice. Yeah, I agree, Sandra. See, James says, let's not act like the UK is the place to be. Every country goes through it. You are not wrong. I think we've got much worse coming over here before too long. Much worse. Thank you, Sally. Kate says, the second centre of the flower has convinced me to buy into the illusion. Yeah, those little things, it's just those little, you know, sometimes it can be something quite small, which tips the balance. And I think partly, like if you've been painting a little bit longer and you've had things like almost fail on you a few times and then managed to pull them back from the brink, you can live in that area when everything is a little bit fluid and you haven't made anything that looks wonderful yet. Do you know what I mean? There's that pressure, like at the start of a painting, like, oh, this looks so complicated. I've got to make this work now. You know, I've got to get something down that looks really good. I have a feeling that as you paint more, you kind of get used to the idea that actually you don't have to do it all now. And also you realize that creating the space is the most important thing at the beginning. You know, creating the feeling of depth and light, that's the most important thing. And that really doesn't come down to the details. at all. I'm trying to get that hard edge on the left-hand side of the vase. I have a feeling it's not working so well there. What did I say? Shadow side of the vase was blue and raw umber. That's feeling like a little ghost of a light coming. Right there. Cool, thank you, Michael. Sally says, I can't tell how wide the spatula is. I want to order one. Well, let me tell you, this is a Princeton Catalyst, Catalyst, what does that say? Catalyst, it is Princeton, yeah, Catalyst by Princeton. This one is an 01, so the width is an inch, exactly an inch, nice and floppy. This one is a little bit less, obviously, but I like it because it's got this bit as well, so you can scrape off like whole wide areas or thinner bits, or just use that, which is very floppy. This is like 3/4 of an inch, that one. And I've got this as well, but it's basically, I think this is only really going to be useful for very big paintings. Like it's too, it's too clumsy for relatively small paintings like this. Adam says, when you use chroma magic, I believe you mentioned you use kind of the average value and chroma to pick that spot, so you are somewhere in the middle. Yeah, so basically with chroma magic you can select the sample size that you take. So I usually have it set really large because I want a general idea, but it's also which bit of the painting you choose to sample. So I want a general light and a general shadow color. You know, that's usually what I'm looking for. So here, like, you know, on this area, maybe I would check 3 places, like here, here, and here. You know, and that's gonna be enough. If I can mix those 3 colors fairly accurately in terms of value and chroma, that's going to be enough for me to be able to make a fairly convincing feeling. Ooh, such a nice shape there. This like hard horizontal, a nice feeling of the roundness of the vase, you know. And I'll have the sample size set quite big, so I get a general color. It's much less useful when you've got very complicated bits, you know. But you look for the big bits, the big areas, which you can find fairly easily, and then you kind of relate things to those. This needs to be a little bit lighter, so rather than painting, I'm scraping some paint off. I mean, this flower back here is so random. It's just a bunch of random shapes. So as long as these look like flowers, I'll get away with it. They don't at the moment, of course. They just look like some kind of abstract shapes, which is what we're looking for. But you know, I've left this, even though it's wrong, because I like how sharp it is. I like how strong it is in the painting, and it doesn't bother me that much that it's out. You know, it's got the, how can I say it? It's got the character of these flowers. You know, this should be more of a point. So let's see if I can kind of bring that a bit more convex up to a point. Yeah, just like that. Like these flowers are very spiky. They're very, you know, hard-edged, and I like that. Donna says, "This is." I'm gonna read this out because it's such a good and such an important point. Donna says, "I love this style of loose painting. Why can't I leave it alone? I get all blendy and lose the impressionism." Yeah. All right. The reason I think that's such an interesting thing to say is because it's really made me think about, you know, is there anything, like my challenge here is not just to make a painting. You know, I hope that I'll be able to give you even when I'm painting really loosely like this, I'll be able to give you something useful that you can take away. And I'm trying to think, like, if I'd have tried this way of making a painting before I was really good at creating form, I think I would have a lot more failures than successes. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't try it. But you probably would have to be ready to fail a lot more and learn from the failures as you go along, you know, and there's a lot to be said for that. But it can also be soul destroying if you have too many of them. You know? So I personally feel like this kind of thing works best if you have a really good understanding of form and how to create form, because it's going into every mark, you know, is like, how light does that need to be? What direction is that plane in relation to the light? So if you can create strong form, if you can get the values right, then you can get away with murder with everything else, you know, and it will still look pretty convincing. Where you get into trouble, I think, it depends on obviously what kind of painting you want to make. I'm not talking about abstract painters who would just be, you know, I suspect interested. I'm not an abstract painter, so I suspect would be much more interested in the marks and, you know, I don't know. Whereas for me, I have to have a feeling of, you know, I'm still anchored to visual reality, which is I don't see as a bad thing. You know, I will always want that there. But because I know that I can paint convincing form if I want to, like I can paint a sphere that looks like you could touch it. You could reach out and touch it. And I taught myself to do that a long time ago. It wasn't much fun learning how to do it, to be fair, you know, and it was hard. And there were lots of really frustrating times when I felt like giving up, and I didn't think I'd ever get there. But because I can do that, I think it makes it more acceptable to me to be able to go in at a painting like this, you know, because I know I can pull it back, and I will probably not this session because I'm enjoying sitting with it where it is at the moment. But I think what I'm going to do is do a second session on this one. Maybe next week. Oh, well, that's good to hear. Thank you, Susan. Susan says, Paul, your enthusiasm for your work is infectious. We need to observe and experience this more than ever these days. Thank you. You're very welcome. I suppose there might be some value in just watching someone enjoy pushing paint around, to think that, you know, at some point, you know, I'm always thinking about, like, I want to support people, and I want to inspire people, and I want to bring people to the easel more often, and I want you to, I want people who learn with me to be inspired by what they're doing, to love what they're doing, and because I think that brings you back to the easel more than anything else. And basically the only way to evolve your own kind of relationship to a subject, the only way to do that really is by painting a lot. Is this right? Should I have done that black? Yes, it's made the shapes really strong, but is it too much now? Is it breaking the space? I can't decide. Let's put it to the vote. What do you all think? Is the black all right, or is it, you know, am I going to want to change that on the next session? What do you think? I'm starting to wind down now. I've gone in a mad rush, like for about an hour, and now I'm starting to get to the slower kind of making decisions about whether things are right or not, and trying to adjust a few values here and there. Still in a very general way, but is the black too much? Definitely going to do a second phase on this, second session on this. Thanks, Donna. UG says, do you recommend we try lead white? I've been super nervous, even though it's readily available here, but I see you handling without gloves. So it can't be too scary as long as we're not eating it. Yeah, honestly, I don't think you can absorb it through your fingers. I mean, if you get it on your fingers and then you eat something, really bad idea. Then you will ingest it. You know, don't be doing that. But as far as I'm aware, I'm not a scientist, but as far as I'm aware, you actually can't absorb it through your fingers. You must make your own decisions, of course, about what you're comfortable with. I'm really annoyed I did that. I got some black in my petal, which just completely spoiled it. But lead white is wonderful for a few reasons. First is the handling qualities. Titanium is just not the same. Lead white is gloopy, and you can make beautiful thick hard edges with it. Like that edge there is thick. It's standing up about 2 millimeters from the surface of the painting. You know, you could maybe force titanium to do that, but with lead white it just happens like really easily. The second is in mixes. It's a lot more forgiving. It's slightly warmer. It's a little bit more, very slightly orange, but very low chroma. And it's transparent, slightly transparent. So it's a lot more forgiving in mixes than titanium is. Titanium will tend to drop the chroma of any color you mix it with, you know, in quite an extreme way. Would I recommend you try lead white? Yeah. If you can get it, yeah, give it a try. What have you got to lose? Well, it is really expensive. So you've got some money to lose, to be fair. So, you know, there is that. But, you know, I've always found it like the most beautiful paint to work with, lead white. It changes the consistency of all your mixes because you think your painting is mostly white. You mix white with almost everything, you know. Here's a good question. I'm not going to try and say your name, but you're from the Ukraine. And it's difficult to find green gold. What color can I substitute? There isn't a direct substitute for green gold, okay? Let's talk about the properties of green gold. It's very high chroma. Look, if I mix some with white, it actually ends up like more intense. You know, it's transparent, very, very transparent. So if you're looking for a substitute, you need very high chroma, and it needs to be transparent. I would say the best way to get close to something like green gold would be by mixing transparent colors. So you could start with the phthalo green. I wouldn't bring in cadmium yellow because cadmium yellow is quite opaque. But you could bring in, what's that? Cad yellow lemon. No, all the cadmiums are opaque. This is called bright yellow lake, and it is an arylide yellow. The pigment is PY3, I think, a diarylide pigment. This is a transparent green yellow, so let's bring some of that in and see what happens. You know, we want to keep the chroma as high as we can, like it's off the charts, right? It's lurid. But if we bring some transparent red oxide in, we can begin to push it back towards, from that very blue-green back towards a kind of a more of a yellow-green. Bring more yellow back into it. And it is also very high chroma and transparent. So that's 3 pigments. It would take some time to get a really close match, but that would get you somewhere near. I put a little bit too much of the phthalo in, I think. So there isn't a direct replacement, but if you can't find it, just try to mix a similar color, but only use transparent high chroma paints. And you can get something which would be probably reasonably workable. So I've got, just to recap, I've got transparent red oxide, arylide yellow, and a bit of phthalo green. And I'm getting fairly close. You know, and if I put white in that, it will keep the chroma still. Surprising amount of phthalo, transparent red oxide it's needing to keep that kind of almost orangish, you know, yellow-green. That's getting pretty close. Hello, Roger, watching for India. That's very cool. Yeah, these spatula things, talking about working on canvas, the reason I work on panels is a lot because you can get all of these kind of interesting textures that you can't get on canvas, because the canvas weave will always be the most obvious texture. If you like that texture, then, you know, obviously that's fine. It's fine to use. Linda's got her value scale. Yes. I'm going backwards, like through some of the comments now that I realized I've missed. So D and G from Korea. That's very cool. Hello and welcome. Oh, Ertie says, don't forget to give Paul a thumbs up on the YouTube title page. Yeah, thumbs up are greatly appreciated. This is the stuff that I never do. Should this be bluer or is it nice like this? Listen, I'm going to put some green on and I'm going to call it a day, because I think we're probably, you know, we're getting sort of close enough here that I would sort of need to back off for a little while. Sally saying, please put the green in. I'm going to do it, Sally. Oh, I asked about the black, didn't I? Andy says, leave the black until you see how it looks with the leaves. Good point. Erica says, maybe it's too dark. Oh, it could be. Marcia says the black is overpowering. Yeah, I'm not sure about it at the moment. And it's one of those things, like when you look at something too closely, it becomes all you see. It's like it's taken over the painting. I'm going to leave it for now because I can always change it later, right? Kathy says, it seems to me that an essential skill here is to be able to draw without guides. Oh, yeah, really good point. I should have said that. Yeah, I mean, my drawing is not terribly accurate, really, I don't think. But, you know, it's enough. I mean, this is obviously well out. This is too high. It should come down lower. This should be wider, like, you know, but you know, it's close enough to work. You certainly need to be confident enough to draw without any kind of a reference. But I've also got a grid. You know, I've got the photo open in Chroma Magic because that's how I look at my reference photos when I paint. And I've got a grid on. Chroma Magic gives you a 4x4 grid, so I can kind of infer a grid. Do you know what I mean? I can imagine a grid and then get things like, generally speaking, reasonably close that way. Kate loves the black. Ooh. What are we going to do? Linda says it's drama. The black is drama. It is drama, yeah. This is true. Green. Let's put some leaves in. So I want that really intense green. Okay, this leaf up here is like a really, really intense green. Value-wise, like generally speaking, looking into Chroma Magic, we're about value 4, value 5. It's a very intense blue-green, so I know I'm going to want, let's get a shot of this. I know I'm going to want the phthalo in there. It's actually probably quite a good thing that I've now got some arylide yellow on there. So let's start off with arylide yellow. Then I'm going to bring in phthalo until I get to about a value 4. And it's going to be way too intense and it's going to be too blue. But it's certainly going to have that chroma, you know. So this needs to go more towards a yellow green, so I'll try bringing in some green gold now. A bit more yellow. We're getting closer now. It's probably too intense. It's a bit too intense. I'm going to calm it down a little bit. I'm going to put in a little bit of raw umber and a little bit of white. And check my value. I want about 4. This is looking probably about 5 at the moment. No, it's about right. A little bit more raw umber, a little bit more white. The reason I'm bringing the raw umber and white in is because it allows me to drop the chroma. And it also will send it a little bit more towards a kind of yellow, orange, green. Raw umber, white. Probably something like an interesting check would be if I bring it up in Chroma Magic. Oh, can't let you all see my password. Almost did my password on screen there. I'm not worried about you finding my phone, but I'm worried about my youngest boy finding it. See, you know, what kind of color we have to here. Get a general idea, something like this, right? So I'm still a little bit too blue-green. I'm going to put in a little bit of cad yellow because I want it to go more yellow-green and bring up the value a little bit. You have to have the light balanced pretty carefully on your phone for this to work. And a lot depends on the light in your painting studio and your situation as well. I've got balanced lights here, one either side of the palette. I have them for the cameras, you know. That should be about it. Let's just try putting in a little bit of this. We need shadow color as well, though, because there's some very dark greens. So I'm going to mix, that's a good light color. I'm going to mix a shadow as well, phthalo. It's going to be a bit warmer. Transparent red oxide. Small amount of cad yellow. Too much TRO. I want this to be very dark, like value 2, value 3, value 2. I'm allowing that to go a little bit more green. A little bit more warmer yellow green. Lighten the shadow. Let's get the... You see? Phthalo. Handle with care. I've already got it all over my hands. So let's put a strong green in. So I'm picking this up so it's all along the side of the knife. Can you see that? It's all along one side of the knife. And it goes up and across here. I'm going to wipe out an area ready for it first. Because otherwise I think it may not take. I've already got a suggestion of where it comes here. I'm more bothered about following that clean mark now than I am about it being in the same place. Just put it in up here. It's right from back here. I'm just thinking about the left-hand edge. That's all I want. I just want the left-hand edge in the right place. I can do everything else afterwards. Hard edge, left-hand edge. A bit darker on the other side, I think. Side's darker. Yeah. Semi-abstract leaf. And I can carve into it again with the black here. Make it harder. I did that really badly. I wanted a very smooth line. And you can see the petal behind it as well. Pull that out of the black. put some of the shadow colour in it. Quite light. Lovely. There's the really dark version. Got some dark here. Some light in here. Actually, that's a bit lighter and a bit lower chroma, so I'm going to bring some more white and some raw umber into that. Oh, I like that. Yeah, so I'm gonna wind up the stream now because I need to think. I feel like I need to think about what I've done. What I've done. I need to think about the god awful mess I've made, and then decide. You know, when I say think about it, I mean I want to put it somewhere I can see it, and look at it a lot over the course of a week or so, and think about what I want to do for the second stage of the painting. I feel like it's come to an interesting point where it started off kind of really a bit wild, and it's ended up somewhere where it's started to pull back. At least all of the colours are in now, you know, so I don't have any real colour worries about it. Some of it I like really abstract at the moment, but some parts of it I want to finish really carefully. I've got to say though, I like this. The blown out, it's like a blown out light. You know, I like that there. I like that blown out light. It's not, you know, it's almost like it is an aberration of the photo, but it's kind of like it, and I like the fact that it's in the painting. It's a part of that, like I was saying about wanting some of it to be very abstract. Hard edge there. And then I'll try and find some areas to finish. I'm dipping this in solvent now to really try and lift that paint and get a hard edge. I'll try and find some areas to finish really carefully. I feel like it's a block in at the moment, but some parts of it I would probably leave as they are. And then some parts I'll paint over, and that's going to be easier when it's all kind of touch dry. So, bit of a wild and crazy session today, but I hope you enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed painting for you. Marcia says, how will you manipulate the design again once the paint dries? I'm not sure I will, Marcia. I don't think I'll do much with the design because I think it's got to a good place. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I've put too much chroma in this blue and it's pushing it forward. It doesn't maybe this needs to recede a little bit more there, but maybe it's going to be okay. I'd be looking to make some of it look like actual flowers, because at the moment it's just like, bit crazy shapes. But this was really about the design more. At least that's what when I started, I was thinking about, well, if I can get this to a point where I have one flower finished, then I'll be able to see if it's going to work. And I'm nowhere near that. But I think I probably don't mind, because it has the overall kind of feeling of the space is starting to come. So in the next session, I would be more, I think probably anyway, I'd be more likely to be starting to pull it back from this mad mess that it is at the moment towards, that continuum that I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, where you've got like complete abstraction on one side and then realism on the other. And I would probably be, at the moment, like if there's realism and here's abstraction, it's somewhere over here. And I probably want to pull some parts of it back over here. And then the kind of the abstract parts will be working. Yeah, I was in the zone. Good point. I probably was. I probably drifted off because I've been online a lot longer than I thought. So yeah, I think the main point probably worth making about this is it's fine to do this, I think, at any point of your learning journey. As long as you're prepared to live with the fact that some parts of it won't work so well until you get a little bit better at it. Though, was it last week, the roses? Probably won't all have seen this, but was it last week I started the roses? I think it was. So I did another session on it, and I pulled some parts of it like much further back towards reality, and then some other parts I deliberately pushed away. So this one at the moment is much more towards abstraction, and at some point, probably in the next session, I'll be working more slowly, and maybe we'll do it live, or maybe I'll come up with something else I'd rather paint more for you. We'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you very much for putting up with me for an hour and 45 minutes while I made a mess on my panel. It was lovely to see you again. I thoroughly enjoyed painting for you today. It was the sunflower, wasn't it, Kathy? Yeah, it was the sunflower last week. I haven't decided if I'm going back onto that one or not yet. We shall see. Anyway, lots of flowers going on at the moment. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. I hope you have a lovely weekend, as lovely as you can, depending on where you are in the world. And I'll see you again next Friday, if not before. Bye for now.